Thank you for listening to We Have Ways of Making You Talk. Sign up to our Patreon to receive bonus content, live streams, and our weekly newsletter with money off books and museum visits as well, plus early access to all live show tickets. That's patreon.com/wehaveways.
Well, Mohammed, welcome to We Have Ways of Making You Talk with me, Murray and James Holland. We are on the Ginkle Heath, the Ginkle Sahida, here in, well, not in Arnhem. And as you can hear, this voice on the PA in the background, because this is the commemorative drop stuff that happens. It's happening on the Saturday to commemorate the landings here, and a Dakota has just gone over
in an absolutely clear blue sky.
It's the most perfect
the
morning.
the only thing in the sky at the moment is the moon, isn't it, which is waning a little bit, and there are tens of thousands of people here. And we thought this episode, we've just obviously done our big six-parter on Operation Market Garden. We thought in this episode we'd look at how Arnhem remembers. It is unique, isn't it?
Yeah, commemoration here is really something.
Something else.
We were told yesterday when we were figuring out how and when to get here that there will be 100,000 people coming to watch this parachute display, and
we slightly ridiculed that, didn't we?
We thought that was, we poo-pooed it, but actually it looks a lot like it.
The interesting thing is, there's no mawkishness about it, is there? This is part of our identity as a city, and we're actually very proud of it, and it's extraordinary because, you know, it didn't work. This
is all about the liberation trail, but the idea of liberation, which of course is a thing we haven't experienced.
No,
have we? So that's I think the gap.
No, because last time they came over in 1066, they stayed.
Who will free us of the Norman yoke, Jim? So where we are right now, we're on the Ginkle Heath.
Yep,
which is the fourth power drop zone for the second lift. 9 miles from Arnhem, and what's happening here this morning?
So this is where John Waddy comes down.
Yeah. Shan Hackett's brigade.
Yep. What an amazing place to drop an airborne brigade. It's ideal, and it's completely perfect, were it not for the fact that it is 9 miles away and someone's got to defend this.
Yeah. Really wide open space. It's limbed by trees, so there's the tree line all the way around it. It's heath. It's relatively...
It really is. It's sand, isn't it?
It's sandy. It's relatively
terrible soil.
Flat. I think we've been promised 1,000 paratroopers this morning, one way or another.
And here it comes.
Going so slowly.
It is.
I mean, they're creeping along. How vulnerable these aircraft are. How you need absolute air supremacy to be able to pull this off. If you're going to send a fleet of these along. But look at it.
Yeah. You've just got to master the skies, haven't you?
And you don't want to do it near any flak. Here we go.
First one's down.
First one's out. These guys are jumping with round parachutes. So
that's absolutely fantastic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12...
And they're coming down right on top of us.
Yeah, they're literally floating on. It's the most beautiful sight.
So we're here on basically what would be called the airline, right? At an air show. But we've met Nick Obdam.
Nick, you've got this incredible Jeep, and you're very kindly going to take us on a race to the bridge, which is incredible this afternoon. This has got to be one of the most storied and personalised Jeeps that I've ever come across. And I've got to say, before we even get into that story, you've told me something today that I didn't know, which is the White Star that so many people think is American but isn't, is an Allied White Star. Canadians and British, the point of the star points inwards towards the windscreen. On the Americans, it points outwards, going forwards. But tell us about this Jeep, because this really is an amazing story.
Yeah, it is a Jeep we bought as a family 1 year ago, and we brought it back on the road after restoring. And the first sunshine, which was shining on the steering wheel, we saw some scratching. And I said to my wife, it looks like a name. And did not bother it until we were home and looked in the garage. And one thing I found out is Buck Sire and some Camp Belton and NB.
Yeah. It definitely says it. I can see it right now. You can see Buck Sire, B-U-C-K, and then C-Y-R.
And then I looked on the internet, and we were very lucky that he was an ice hockey player after the war, so Amazing. It was easy to find. And we saw an ice hockey theme on Facebook, and I used my wife's Facebook, just placed a picture of the steer underneath the ice hockey team on Facebook, and said, I don't want to interfere, but I have, I think, a steering wheel with his name on. Amazing. And then his daughter, within 5 minutes, she reacted, I write this with tears in my eyes because I know 100% sure that's my dad, Army army jeep, and I will tell you why. Pick up the phone and talk like that. So we had a phone call, and she says, we went back to Holland 2 or 3 times for memorial services here in Arnhem, and he was checking every jeep. As a veteran, he was allowed, of course, to drive in those jeeps.
Yes, of course.
And they drove him around, and he was checking them all. I said, it's not mine, and he was looking at the steering wheel, and his daughter did not have a clue what he was talking about. Came in contact and said, his name is in the steering wheel. She said, I know it for sure, it's his jeep. Yeah, he survived the war.
Yeah.
And his family came over, I think now 2 months ago, to visit the jeep.
Wow.
Well, yes, and you were telling me the amazing story about on June the 6th.
Yeah, we went. We were in contact with the family, and she says the grandson of Buck was on a school trip. So we met him up first at the airport in Holland. They started with a bus and drove all the way up to Normandy for a school trip.
Yeah.
They do it in Canada for a final year. And I said, now that's very lucky because we are also going for 9 days to Normandy, and I will hook up with him.
Brilliant.
And we drove on Juno Beach, and the jeep was actually on the beach 80 years after
It had been
his grandfather came ashore at the same place.
But you ran into the gendarme, didn't you?
Yeah, there's gendarme everywhere, and the problem is they don't speak English, and most of the time they have a big moustache and are not very friendly. So,
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
But the gendarme, they stopped us, and we explained the story, showed them a YouTube video, and with subtitles, and then they said, it's unbelievable, I opened the fence for you, you can go. So we were at Juno Beach at that time, the only jeep who was allowed to drive around.
You know, well done for getting it, finding
Keeping
it, bringing
it
it back to
alive.
life and continuing the story.
Yeah, no problem. That's what we do.
And now we're going to jump in
Race
the
to the
back
bridge.
and race to the bridge.
Well, Jim, we've been granted proper privileged access. I never ever thought I'd get into the attic of the Hartenstein Hotel.
No, but here we are
With
Yuri Brandjans.
who has the keys to the castle, as it were,
Yeah.
here at the Hartenstein, the museum. Thank you so much for having us and taking time.
Particularly on this day of days.
Well, exactly, on the maddest time of year for you here, right? What's it like being here in the eye of the storm?
It's amazing. It's hectic. It's busy, but it's really nice to see that all of the interest that people show for the topic in September. It's really nice to work here, to see it so appreciated by the entire village, by all the veterans, by all the children of the veterans who come over. It's remarkable.
I mean, one of the things that really strikes me every time I'm here is just how many flags there are. I mean, what is it that makes people here in Oosterbeek and in Arnhem put out so many flags, airborne flags?
I think it's the connection they have with the history and with also the families of the veterans that have been coming over ever since the war ended, basically. The fighting was so intense in Oosterbeek, in Arnhem, and it was shared with the local civilians at the time. They were in the basements, the paratroopers were upstairs fighting. And I think that really struck a deep bond between the British and the Dutch. And that's something that's remained ever since. We have the cemetery. I think that also plays a very large part. The veterans return to it to pay their respects to the fallen. The Dutch civilians have adopted the graves. Each year the children from the local primary schools, they come out laying flowers on the graves. And every generation is being brought up like that in Oosterbeek. And I think that really...
and in Arnhem Town as well, don't they?
In Arnhem as well, yeah. Obviously, yeah.
I mean, in a way, I suppose the civilians and the men who fought here shared the curve of the excitement of a moment of liberation, the feeling of liberation, and then consequence of the failure of the operation here together, didn't they? That there was the men who came here were thinking, we're going to win the war's over, and the people here thought, the war's over, finally we're being set free, and that they share that emotional moment together of hope and then despair, I suppose, and that's the thing that really binds them together, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a major factor in it. I think they went through the hardships together. There is of course the big difference that after the airborne forces retreated, they were forced to evacuate.
Yeah.
So they had an entire winter of hardship ahead of them at the time. And there was also a feeling when the British soldiers were returning for the first time that they might not be welcomed. They felt, look, we came, we messed up the town, We left destruction in our wake, and you all had to leave because of that.
Yeah.
And they were a bit unsure, but they received such a warm welcome from the first moment they returned, because the civilians also saw the efforts they were making.
Yeah, because there was a tradition. There's been a tradition of families taking in veterans, and that's now extended to families here taking in the children of veterans as well.
Exactly.
So friendships and bonds formed through that.
That's exactly what's happening. When the veterans were still around in their masses, they would come over. They were being put up by the local families, and they would bring their own family over for special occasions, and then the children would meet and get to know each other, and that's something that's transferred through the generations.
It's remarkable.
So was that quite a thing, the veterans coming back? I mean, traditionally a lot of veterans don't they don't sort of confront what they did until they've retired, and the kids have flown the nest and they've got a bit more time on their hands and stuff. But was there a tradition of Arnhem veterans going back to Arnhem and to Oosterbeek?
Yeah, from the very first beginning, yeah. The first time they returned, it wasn't all rebuilt. It was still basically in
pretty
ruins.
Trashed.
That's also when they filmed Theirs is the Glory. They basically used the destructed village as a backdrop for the first proper movie about the Battle of Arnhem.
Well, that movie is such an extraordinary thing to watch, isn't it?
It is.
And the people in it, that it's the people in it who were there. One of the guys in it said that the problem with the film, as far as he was concerned, is no one in it's scared, that you watch it and no one in it is frightened. And he says if a special effects man says he's going to set off an explosion, you're like, fine, whatever. But when you're living it, when it's happening to you, no one's warning you about the explosions and the gunfire. It's all real. And he said, looking back, he watched it and thought, well, this is absurd because none of us are terrified.
That's also the thing. They had so many veterans playing themselves in the movie. These were professional soldiers, they're not actors. When you came up to the office, you walked past a door from the old church, and there's a text on it, and it's a speech given by Major Lonsdale. So when the directors heard about him rallying the troops, basically when the battalions were pulling back from Arnhem towards Oosterbeek, he was one of the people responsible for organizing things again. And apparently he gave a rallying speech to the men, and the director wanted that in the movie. And then they ran into the issue. He's not a professional actor. He doesn't know how to remember his lines. So he kept getting it wrong until they finally decided, look, we'll write the text down on this massive door that was blown off the hinges. Yeah. And it was just placed outside of shot so he could just read it off as he went.
But it's interesting though, because I mean, it's so fascinating that you have that at the museum, because after all, the thing with Arnhem is it's a battle that lives on in media and in lots of ways that most don't. That it's had 2 movies about it, and Theirs is the Glory is a big hit film in the UK, did really, really well, that it's had those things. And so I think it's very interesting that here at the museum, that reflects that. That's part of battle has been remembered. And, we're here to talk about remembrance. The museum here as well is such a crucial part of commemorating the battle and the way you present it. Has it needed a lot of reinvention, keeping the memory going, and or has it been a sort of reasonably straight line over the years?
If you look back at the very start of the museum, there has been a lot of changes, obviously. And I think that's to do with that the people visiting museums require something different. So we need to keep up. Basically, we have to keep up with the times as well, just like any other museum has to keep the interest of our visitors. But as for the story, in essence, it hasn't changed over the years because obviously the history hasn't changed. We get new objects from time to time and we include them in the exhibition, or we choose to focus on some parts that have been neglected in the past, for instance. But the core strength of the museum, and that if you walk around the permanent exhibition, you'll see that the core of what we do is to tell the story of the Battle of Arnhem through the personal stories of the men who fought there. And the museum began in 1947. And it's always been sort of a magnet for the veterans returning. They've always had a place they could visit. Yeah.
And this morning, of course, at the service, we saw the last living survivor of the battle, King's Own Scottish Borderers, stand up and lay that wreath. 99 years old. He's just not going to be around forever, is he? So do you think once this is out of living memory, do you think that's going to change? Do you think change how people view the battle? Do you think there'll be a waning of interest?
Well, it's difficult to say anything with certainty about that, but I think if you look at Oosterbeek and you see, and Arnhem as well, obviously, you see how this history is carried in the hearts of the local population. That's something that's not going to disappear overnight. I'm really not afraid that will mean that the memory is no longer carried over. It's something that is so fixed in the minds of the people living here, and also on the other side of the channel in England. There's so much interest for the parachute regiment, the Battle of Arnhem. I think it's safe to say that's going to be around for a very long time to come.
Thank you so much for your time. And everyone, become a member of the Hartenstein, please.
Yep.
Welcome back to the Rest is Football. Well, I think, Gary, we can say that first half so far has been incredibly exciting.
Here we are at Vitesse Arnhem Stadium. It's been an amazing half, partly for the football, but mainly for just what we've witnessed in terms of
Commemoration, the elements bolted on to the game, these special ingredients that make the whole thing so fascinating. So aside from, well, first of all, a mighty eagle, screaming eagle, flew around the stadium.
What was all that about?
What was that about? I've no idea. I mean, their logo is an eagle. Then, but then it turned to the commemoration stuff, and an enormous banner at the other end of the ground from here, covering the whole of that stand, appeared, which said "Never forget our heroes." With again in the maroon and the sky blue, the airborne colours, with an image from a new sculpture, which is of an airborne
holding the hand
soldier
of a child.
holding the hand of a child.
And both you and I suddenly. It was so unexpected, wasn't it?
Like that goal nearly was unexpected.
Yes.
I mean, but not only is that giant banner at the end, and that made me feel quite
bit choked up.
Yeah, a little bit of hay fever suddenly.
Yeah.
Is the kit they're wearing?
Yeah.
So they normally wear like a yellow and black strip, but tonight they're wearing again the maroon and sky blue colours of British Airborne Forces.
And they had the mascots, which are sort of children, come on and waggle airborne
standards.
Standards.
Yeah.
There's a couple of veterans in the audience, so both sides, both them and young Ajax, went over and paid their respects and shook their hands and what have you. And then, and this was completely, I was not expecting at all, at 19 minutes 44 seconds, everyone spontaneously stood up
and applauded for a minute. Absolutely incredible.
While the game played on.
Yeah, the game played on, but
everyone.
Yeah.
You know, even the Vitesse fans at the far end who've been chanting and singing and stamping all game were suddenly stopped. The drumming ended.
The drumming ceased. Yeah,
and clapping began.
Quite extraordinary. And there are banners up, lest we forget banners and poppy signs and things. But that extra element, that extra sort of stuff that you don't see anywhere else, you never see.
No.
That's unique to here, that's quite clearly part of the culture. And obviously this part of Arnhem, South Arnhem, is new, wasn't here during the war. So even the new bit, which is like the development south of the river.
For me, Al, I just think this is so in keeping with everything else we've seen today, which is a city that wholly embraces what happened here 80 years ago.
Yeah. And embraces it for better or worse. That's the thing.
Football clubs with acknowledging what happened in wars and stuff.
No.
I mean, it's about sport. It's not about the Second World War.
But people might wear a poppy in an English football game. They might do that. But this is the whole culture of it's geared to it here. It's absolutely extraordinary.
Everyone just seems to embrace it. I've never seen anything like it, and it's done so without any mawkishness, which I've said that a couple of times, but there really isn't. There's no sort of schmaltz about it. It's just very matter of fact, very respectful and
touching. Tell you what, I'm going to buy a shirt on my way out. I don't know about you. This is great. But back to the football now, Kerry.
Well, we're joined by the main man, the Mayor of Arnhem, and thank you for coming and talking to us. I mean, we've been really struck by the intensity of the commemoration here in Arnhem, but also the dignity that comes with it, and the acceptance by the entire city and the population. I don't know anywhere in the world that commemorates part of the Second World War with the degree of respect and empathy that you do here in Arnhem.
The Battle of Arnhem, I'm originally from Amsterdam. I didn't even know that the remembrance of the Battle of Arnhem is getting in this way, because it starts at the start of September. Then the people start to prepare with flags, educational programs, meetings in the neighborhoods to tell about this battle, to tell the story of the heroes. When you say Arnhem, then you say heroes, because the Arnhemers, the citizens of Arnhem, of the region of Arnhem, when they tell about the battle, it seems like that the history of the city started after the battle.
Yeah.
So they are very thankful for the freedom and the peace that at this moment. And in the meantime, they are very thankful that all these guys at that time, young people, 18, 19 years, give the efforts, give their lives for their freedom, and try to say, lest we forget. To remember them, and they know that the best way to honor veterans, to honor the victims, is to be active in intensity, to preach peace, to educate peace, so that in our time, that kind of young people don't have to go to the war
For themselves, yeah. We found that the children, the children and the flowers, incredibly moving, because there's nothing like that in the UK. We don't do anything like that, do we?
No.
We believe that it is very important to educate children in this history,
Yeah.
and in the meantime to educate them in a language not of violence or war, but in the language of peace, and to see these benefits of freedom, of democracy, of the state of law, and to defend it. If you want them to defend these high values of freedom and peace, then we have to educate them in that. So it is very important that we have the veterans telling their stories, the evacuees telling their stories, but it is also important to organize these events with participation of young children and their parents. This battle had a very big impact on the citizens. You have to know that when the Allied troops arrived to the city, the people thought, hey, this is freedom, we are free. But that was the moment of the start of the fighting, of the battle. The houses were all destroyed.
Yeah.
And the whole city, 100,000 of the citizens had to be evacuated.
Yeah.
When they came back, there was no house in the standing in the city. So the impact is very big. And in the meantime, you know, in the beginning, the veterans were ashamed to come back, because they say, we didn't succeed. We brought you only a lot of
Destruction.
It was a
misery.
disaster.
Hardship, yeah.
But the people were thankful because they tried, for the intention, for their courage,
effort,
for their courage to try to stop Hitler
who they left
at that
behind.
time. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us. How do we address the Mayor of Arnhem? Your Excellency, Your Grace? What do we call you?
No. My name is Ahmed Markouch.
Well, thank you, Ahmed.
And I'm the mayor of
Thank you so
of
much
a
for your
very
time.
beautiful, great city, Arnhem.
Right, well, I think it's the Parachute Regiment Band launches into yet another...
Lionel Richie
no,
number.
it's Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. So they're having a good time. And who are we here to... We're now talking to... are you the editor of the Kinderkrant or the
Publisher.
founder? Publisher. Wonderful.
Yes.
Rosalie, could you explain to us what this newspaper is?
Yes, we made a newspaper for children and by children, because the commemoration of the Battle of Arnhem is very important, and there are lots of books about it, and there are lots of memorial services, but in the eyes of children they're a bit dull, frankly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we found that a shame and a missed opportunity. So we found a way to involve children in a new way, in their own way, so they can tell what they find important and why they find it important to keep remembering this.
And Rosalie, why do you think that Arnhem, above literally anywhere else in the world seems to commemorate what happened here in the war so strongly. I mean, you don't have the same sense in Nijmegen or Eindhoven, for example. Arnhem really is, it's an incredibly strong part of the makeup of the city now. I mean, why do you think that is, and why do you think it's so important to remember?
I think the impact was immense. Obviously, the impact of war is always immense, but in Arnhem it was even more immense. And the friendship formed immediately after the war. And the friendship was made for it to last an eternity, I think.
It's nothing like this in the UK. There's nothing like this even in Normandy. It's a much more commercial commemoration than it is here. Whereas this doesn't feel like a commercial thing at all.
No, it's not. No, there are many volunteers involved in organizing all the events.
Yeah.
Every year there's about 60 or 17 events to commemorate the Battle of Arnhem. This year it's even more, about 120, organized by volunteers.
So what's in the magazine then? You've got it there.
Yes, they interviewed Adrie Over. She's a lady coming from Oosterbeek. She's, I think, 83 years old, and she was.
What she remembers of it?
Yes,
Gosh.
she was. Remembers the Battle of Arnhem. She has a very impressive story about it. Flee and evacuate the area after the Battle of Arnhem, and a very impressive story. They did some research about the diary of Felix Valk. He was a child during the Battle of Arnhem.
Yep.
And he made a very impressive diary and very impressive drawings as well.
Look at this.
Yes, and the children wrote letters to Felix.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, amazing.
Arnhem does its commemoration just so incredibly well.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exceptional, isn't it?
Yeah, and really touching, and you do get the feeling, because of course today we have just the one veteran today laying a wreath, but there will be a time when that's passed and there aren't any at all. But I don't feel that it'll change the commemoration.
No,
it
will not end with the passing of the last veteran. No. The friendships are so deep. Also, there are a lot of families here from veterans. You see the bonds between regiments, between citizens of Great Britain and citizens of here. That will last forever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm convinced.
Well, thanks so much for talking to us.
You're welcome.
So Nathan, you've contributed to this, have you?
I was a part of this beautiful newspaper.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's incredible. What does the Battle of Arnhem mean to you? How do you feel about it?
Well, first I wasn't really interested in it.
Yeah.
I was just looking for an after-school activity to do, and then I came across this. They spoke about it in school.
Oh, the comic strip book.
Yes, this one, and then I was like, well, I want to do that, and then I really started to realize that's my great-grandfather that fought for our freedom. It was just really nice to then write about it, and to meet. Also, we met a woman that actually survived the war.
Gosh.
And what was it like talking to her?
It was very impressive to hear all the stories from what she had survived and what she saw during that time.
And she was a child, a kid.
Yeah, she was 5.
So did it make you think, what would it be like for you, imagining as a child what it would be like if war came?
Yes, it was. We also had a moment where we had to imagine, like, what would we want to do during that moment? How would we feel?
Yeah.
We don't really have a segment about it, I think, but we did have an exercise where we did that.
Okay. Amazing.
And do you think your interest in this is going to grow, or do you think you've done it now?
I think I've done it now, but maybe in 10 years I'm going to see, I did this, and then read it again and think,
And
wow.
save up and buy a Jeep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us.
Yeah,
And
thank
we
you,
think
Nathan.
we think this is
a
amazing.
wonderful thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Arnhem, Black Tuesday, 24 hours in the Battle of Arnhem. From me, Al Murray. Now, if you're familiar with me, and we have ways of making you talk, you know I do everything I can to crowbar the Battle of Arnhem into every conversation. Well, here it is, the full crowbar. Arnhem, Black Tuesday, out now in hardback, ebook and audio.
5 bitter months of fighting, 4 bloody battles, 1 legendary campaign. Casino 44 by me, James Holland, is the astonishing story of one of the most brutal and hard-fought battles of the Second World War in Italy, told in the moment and from the perspective of those who lived, fought and died there. Casino 44, out now in hardback, ebook and audio.